Jason, you're hitting on a situation or a narrative or the look of the team, the style of the team, the identity of the team and the program that we've seen transition even with the same coach. And I'm going to Bob Stoops on this one. So look over the last 20 years. Bob Stoops takes over the program in 1999. And we saw the best defense in the country win the national championship in 2000. They held a Florida State team with weapons all over the field and the Heisman Trophy winner to 0. They won that on defense and taking care of the football. Within 5 to 6 years, the without stumbling, continuing to challenge for BCS championship game appearances, they transformed the team from this rock solid defense that's just going to punch you in the mouth and we're going to protect the football to wide open. We're throwing the ball and putting up numbers unlike almost anybody in the country. And they didn't take a dip. They transitioned for better or worse, depending on your perspective. And then obviously that style of play carried all the way through to Lincoln Riley. And of course, I think the running game and the physical nature of the offensive line play and the running game gets shortchanged in that. It wasn't just this pass-happy offense. But we go from during the Lincoln Riley era, stemming from Bob Stoops, this star quarterback being the center of the team, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, even though he wasn't considered a passer, he was a star. He had already established himself as a star at Alabama, and he was a name. Now, Dillon Gabriel, I think everybody's confident that he's going to be a capable player, but they just don't seem to, in addition to Gabriel, have these explosive kind of players, CeeDee Lamb type players that are just going to light up the scoreboard and everything. And I think that's getting into the heads of people, understandably so, in projecting this to be a 9-3 team, 15th in the country, something like that. But even if it doesn't take hold this year, I think that Venables is shown, we haven't seen a game played yet, but that this thought that they're going to be outdated and he's going to be all this defense. No, he's going to be able to maintain the offense. He's got Jeff Lebby there. And this may turn out to be a good thing for Oklahoma, that they're going to be a much more disciplined, technically sound, tough-minded, and tough physically football team that's going to be strong in the trenches to beat people up. And again, it may not completely take hold, this version of Oklahoma football, but it may be a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I'll kind of grab onto your last couple of points there. And I think typically, I think a lot of times what you see, Mark, is when you have a team that comes in with a new head coach, and obviously that new coach has their different philosophy and their different way that they want to run a program, and you typically see a few kids. You see a lot of kids that don't necessarily buy in. You see some kids that hit the portal because they're not happy. And you've really not really seen too much of really none of the former in terms of people not kids not buying in. But then you've also not really seen a lot of transfers after Venables kind of got in town and talked through with his with his staff and kind of develop what their mindset's going to be. So I think that's really big and that's really important. And I think absolutely to your point, Mark, as well, that no matter what you see on the field in terms of wins and losses, I think what you're going to see is a team that is stronger, is tougher, plays with more discipline, plays with more heart. I think as a team that plays probably a full 4-quarter game, I think there is a big problem within this team of, and I don't know if that lends itself more to Riley, if that lends itself more to the strength and conditioning program, if that lends itself just to the mindset that some of these kids had, is finishing games the right way, because this has been a problem for Oklahoma for quite some time. And it, and it, we were sitting here talking about this last year as one of the keys from an intangible perspective in this for this team last year is, do they have the ability to finish off these teams, to because they let teams in. And what do we see? It was a full season of not playing complete games that started on the very first game of the year. So I absolutely don't expect that to happen. It's not something that Venables will put up with. Um, you know, with with unquestionably he won't put up with that. So I think you'll see that a team that probably fans are probably more proud to watch in this season. Obviously, we're saying this, and we haven't seen any games, or any of these kids line up. But I think I think that's what you'll see. And yeah, I think this team probably doesn't have a they don't have a Roy Williams on defense. They don't have a Tommy Harris on defense. They don't have a Teddy Lehman on defense. Um, they don't have a CD Lamb. They probably don't have a Baker Mayfield, right? But I think they have a lot of, when you get a team that is coached to their highest potential, and when you get a team that is motivated, sometimes that motivation, and sometimes that those players and those kids that really really want to be here and really want to play and really have have pride for the program. I think they sometimes can play maybe even above their um, perceived capabilities. So I think it'll be interesting going into the season on what that looks like. I think the team, I mean, and Brent said this, and which is very, very coach speak to a certain degree, is, he'd mentioned that this team in fall camp will look nothing like what they looked in spring camp. And I think that's certainly remains to be seen. I think he's probably thinking more kind of physically than on the mental side, and having a full strength and conditioning program through the summer, and kind of developing those habits and things like that. But I think certainly you'll see a team that progresses and gets better and better as the season goes on. And last year, it was, when you looked at this team, it was probably pretty much the same team that lined up against Tulane, that lined up against Baylor late in the season, when they got exposed a little bit. So specifically on the defensive side of the ball. So yeah, I think this is a team that'll get better, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, as this team gets more and more familiar with with what they're doing on defense. But you talk about, sure, Venables as a first year head coach, he's going to make some mistakes. It's human nature. You're going to make some mistakes in your first year running a program, first year as a head coach, and your first time doing any kind of job, right? You're going to um, make some mistakes. However, when you look at what he's done over his career, um, he's always had great defensive teams. Some better than others, certainly, but he's always had good to great defensive teams, and there's no reason to think that's not going to be the case again this year. And to your point about Levy, he's a proven commodity as well, so they're going to, they're going to have success. Does it translate to the same success that Oklahoma's had offensively over the last 4 to 5 years? I mean, we'll see. I think Oklahoma has the guys in place. I mean, their running back room is obviously, you lose a guy like Kennedy Brooks, and think, how could your running back room be stronger? But the guys that Oklahoma has brought in, they're in a much better position this year than they were last year. In that room. And then you look at the receivers. Maybe they don't have a great overall receiver, comparatively to a CD Lamb, to a Hollywood Brown, to a whoever you want, Mark Clayton, Sterling Shepard, whoever you want to use in that placeholder. But I think as a group, this could be a good receiving team. So it'll be interesting to see how how this team looks at the beginning of the year versus how they continue to improve throughout the year.